welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to tell you bienvenido to all of our friends in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no man love more than the good old boys down south. In the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful August the 28th, 2020, Rondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, I've been stressed all day. I've been sitting up looking outside my windows. You know, I listened to Donald Trump last night. He said that the Democrats are going to come bulldoze my suburbs, so I'm a little nervous waiting on the bulldozers to show up. But I want to say thank you to our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, our doctors, our first responders, the strongest and most gracious people in America.
Yeah, they really are, Big C. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. And also all around the world, just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Man, I'm telling you, something called the reticular activating system. Everybody's talking about doing the pause. We'll never pause on the Veteran Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, it's important to me as well as should be important to all Americans to think about the service that our great veterans have endured for this country. We give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline on our shows, Charlton, but we lose some 22 Americans a day to suicide in this country, an horrific number. And most veterans don't, that are homeless and destitute, they don't have access to medical care. They don't have access, Charlton, to a phone. They don't have a home. They're living under a bridge or something along those ways. So as we think about our veterans during this pandemic that's been horrid on all Americans, Charlton, it even affects veterans. So not just the suicide is affecting veterans, but COVID-19 is affecting veterans. We have to find a way as a society and a country to help those veterans out. Just like we talked about racial equality in America, we need to get equality for these veterans where they can live a quality life, Charlton, after they serve their service in the United States.
Yeah, and we'll just do our part, and hopefully the whole world can join hands. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 and get some help. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net and get some help. There's a song I've been listening to. I've been listening to it all day. It says, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. I've been singing it all day in my mind, and I think about that. Our veterans, they need love and they need help. I want to say very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants, and they say, hey, kid. When you reach out to them, just tell them Big C sent you, and I really appreciate, and I know they appreciate it too. Our goal is simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers to put 10,000 real estate agents to work for our company, just like McDonald's does it, car dealerships do it, sports teams do it. Watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to BigCSports.pacwm.com. That's BigCSports.pacwm.com. Big C, did you say POTUS gave you a job to drive bulldozers to go into the suburbs and level houses? Is that what you said, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, he said all of us who live in the suburbs, Charlton, that our homes are going to be destroyed by the Democrats.
Yeah.
They're going to send in bulldozers and bulldoze down our property, our
Wow.
homes, and all of that. So, the neighborhood that I live in is quite quiet.
Yep.
I was just sitting around listening for a little noise today, other than the Harleys that some of the guys have driving through, to see if the bulldozers were on their way. That the president doesn't lie, but he's promised that they're going to bulldoze the suburbs. So since he doesn't lie, I guess that's going to happen all across America. It's going to be the biggest job ever created in America.
Yeah, they normally call that gentrification. Make sure people get out and vote. We want to do our part. Text the word vote to 26797. That's 26797. And make sure you do that. Tell all your friends and family. Tell them Big C, the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball. Everybody's saying get out and vote. Make this the biggest vote in the history of the universe. We really want to do our part with that. I love so many things today is kind of it's one of those days where you just appreciate everything that God's done for you. As people grow up and spread their wings, you just got to keep spreading your wings and be the best you can be. Go conquer the universe. That's what I always tell that to people that I love. I want to just get your thoughts on something. I know we had the Republican National Convention last night. The NBA players also agree to finish the playoffs in the bubble and stay focused on the United States of America. And they're focused on what we've been talking about. It's about lawmakers that sign legislation that addresses liberty and justice for all. Isn't it amazing? Again, it's black men that have gotten everyone all over the country talking about legislation. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you can't tell a guy not to go to work, and that's what I look at with the players agreeing to play and stay in the bubble. But as I've talked about on many occasions, black people will never have this power again in America that they possess right now. You think about when the Milwaukee Bucks said, we're not going to play. We're putting this thing on pause.
Yeah.
Think about the shock factor that occurred when they did that, the ripple effect that went through sports to say, okay, we stand with you. That the rest of the NBA, you had MLB doing it, Chalk. You had the NHL doing it. You had the MLS doing it. The WNBA. You had players in the NFL even talking about it. So when black players want to have power and inflict social change and political change, they can do that. It doesn't happen by playing on the court. It happens by not being on the court. Because if you say it many times, there's two things that white men fear: losing their money and losing their lives. They were losing their money when these Negroes decide not to play. And you can go out there and dribble a basketball and win a championship, but at the end of the day, what you do is deflect everybody from the social uprise that we have in America. We have emotion and momentum going. And when you take the steam out of that momentum, you lose all the effects that you've created.
I think the whole world is paying attention to just justice, listening to the other person's point of view. I mean, it's like God made it that way. There's a day and a night. They don't exist at the same time. But just like agreements and disagreements, people don't always agree and disagree at the same time. But I really appreciate it. It was players that took a stance, I think, Thursday morning. They came out after the postponement of 3 playoff games on Wednesday, including the Bucks and Magic, and which Milwaukee players staged to walk out. And I'm just appreciative that a lot of young people all over this country, they are realizing there's no perfect way to do anything, Big C. It doesn't matter what anybody does. They can always be criticized. But it's like the young men, they're making an effort. They're not just sitting back complaining. And I like that. That's progress, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, everybody's making an effort. I mean, but if you put all the onuses on the athletes, you saw the powers that the athletes have, and they walked away from the power that they possess. You see what the people on the street are doing that have been marching for over 80 days since the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. They've never stopped their momentum. The momentum even picked up more after the shooting of Mr. Brooks in Wisconsin. So as we look at the people who are not willing to back down from this momentum that they've created, it's not the athletes, Charlton. It's the layman people on the street that are carrying the torch. The athletes are entertaining the rich people and the people who got jobs and got homes to sit in. They're not struggling. And so those people that are on the street, I give them more credence than what I give the athletes. Yes, the athletes can get in front of a microphone, but we see the momentum that's in the streets of America every day and every night.
Well, I think the only momentum we need to see is to march up to the courthouses with the governors and politicians to march on Washington to judge a state law. I mean, the only thing that's going to make a difference, we are a nation of the law, and if people don't get law signed, then we can march for it in the next million years. Republican National Convention, to me, I thought it was shameful that Donald Trump, it's like the emoluments clause. You're not supposed to use the White House to profit, but he brought his whole family in there, kind of had a family reunion. And I don't think it's ever been done by a president. They were not wearing any mask. No masks were worn. I mean, Herman Cain, one of his supposedly black friends that he had so much love and respect for, that passed away from COVID-19 after attending a POTUS convention that was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, similar to what happened last night. And he didn't even mention the name of his best friend, as he says we're on top of COVID-19. And he died because he didn't wear a mask and many other things. So there were about 1,500 to 2,000 people there last night. No more than maybe 10 people wore a mask, Big C. I think his speech went on too long. Even he's affected by COVID or something. He kept sniffing a lot, and he just got really tired. It didn't seem like he had his energy, but his tactics, and I'll throw it to you. You talked about the bulldozer. His tactics are to scare white suburban women, that they should be scared of Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, guys like them looking for teenage white girls, or what they should have been scared of. And just Google that. They've been preying on white teenagers. Now they're preying on the mothers of those white teenagers, saying that people of color are going to move into your neighborhood. It wasn't black people that was dating teenage white girls. That was Jeffrey Epstein and Trump's friends. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about what Donald Trump did in this Republican convention and the rest of the Republicans, he paraded four black people up there to say Donald Trump's a good guy. Regardless of what he says about us as a culture, he's a great guy, and you got to believe in him. But what Donald Trump did last night is that he ignited his base once again.
Yeah.
He kept them in place. They didn't go astray. And the thing about it, Charlton, he did enough last night to get reelected. That's the most fearful part of it. When you think about the fear-mongering that he utilizes throughout his campaign and his speech last night was all about anger. It was not unifying America. Donald Trump said last night, you can only save America. Donald Trump can save America from Donald Trump. Nobody else can.
Wow.
When you look at where we are, when he talks about racial division, he's been the damn president for almost the last 4 years.
Yeah, it's under his
watch.
watch.
When you talk about anarchy in the streets, he's been the president for the last 4 years. When you talk about homicides in the streets, he's been the president for the last 4 years. When you talk about police brutality, he's been the president for the last 4 years. Well, so when you talk about unemployment, you talk about COVID-19, anything that you want to talk about, Charlton, Donald Trump has been the president of America for the last 4 years. He can't blame that on Joe Biden.
No,
he can't blame that on the Democrats. So the problems that we face in America today and have faced for the last 3.5, 4 years in America, that's the real Donald Trump.
Oh yeah, we've already known that about him, and he's not going to get reelected. I saw the same dog whistle that got Mike Pence kicked out of a Lutheran college in Wisconsin. They were thinking that they would go in there and get invited in. You ever get uninvited from a big meeting, Big C, that you even need Secret Service to plan for, and within 24 hours you ever get uninvited, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I haven't been fortunate enough to employ the Secret Service yet.
Yeah, well, he saved the taxpayers some money. They said, we don't want him. They know what he's all about. They turned away on Mike Pence. In fact, there was a funny thing I saw last night, and people can vote for who they want to, but there were things when President Obama had his first term, and he would give his speeches, and they were chanting 4 more years, and he got 4 more years. He got 8 years. Donald Trump, if you pay attention, they did a thing last night. There's about 1,500 to 2,000 people, and they were chanting 4 more years. 4 more. It was like 4 people said it. It was all his family, Big C. Then he said it like 3 times. The whole crowd, they said, hell no. It was funny. Did you notice that?
Well, if you look at Donald Trump throughout his presidency, when you think about lines that he has used in monarchs, he has taken slogans from President Obama's administration.
Yeah.
If you want to do a fact checking, you go back and you review President Obama's administration over the 8 years he was in office. Everything that Donald Trump has used, he's stolen from Obama.
Yeah.
Everything that his wife has used, she stole from Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
So when you think about originality, these are not original people, Charlton. They're copycats.
Yeah.
But what Donald Trump has done is that if you tell the people something over and over, they tend to believe it. Just like when he was on television on The Apprentice. He kept telling everybody he was the number one show on television.
Yep.
And his producers told him, no, you're not. He said, that doesn't make a difference. Keep
Yeah.
telling them that we are, they will believe it.
Yeah.
Just like when you listen to what he has said over the last 3.5 years. You know, there was one point that he said about the wall on the southern border.
Yeah.
When he says, we're building 10 miles a day. And I don't, you know, and it took me straight to Hillary Clinton
Yeah.
when he said that. And the deplorable thing came to my mind because if you are a salient, intelligent individual,
Yeah.
what in the hell can you build 10 miles of in a day? Especially when you're dealing with concrete and steel. It can't happen. Concrete has to cure.
Yeah.
It takes 3 to 4 days or 5 days before you want to build on, especially if you're in construction. You want to
Yeah.
take at least a couple of weeks to let it cure properly.
Hey,
So when he sit up to tell these people these lies and they believe it, a simple lie like that, Charlton, if they believe that, what else won't they believe with him?
well, maybe he's building a wall of lies, but you're the one who said you heard the bulldozers outside your neighborhood. You see that building a wall around your place? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, that's what it's going to take is to build
Yeah.
a wall around the community that we're in just
Yeah.
to keep those people out.
Yeah, it's funny. One more thing I really want to touch on is with Donald Trump saying the NBA's become a political organization, and that's not good. I guess it's not good for his group of people, Big C. But the thing that really caught my attention, there's a guy by the name of Jared Kushner, and he talked about NBA protests, and he talked about black men having enough money and don't have to deal with the consequences financially, and that they have a luxury. Well, here's a guy whose father was a criminal, and ended up getting some good old boy favor. But Kushner, I believe he's married, at least for now, to one of Donald Trump's daughters. And how did he get his job talking about having the luxury to not have to work? Did that make any sense to you, Big C?
Well, you know, he's never had to work. His dad was a real estate criminal in New Jersey.
Yep.
Went to prison. You know, Chris Christie put him in prison when he was Attorney General.
Yep.
and so when you think about Jared Kushner being in the White House
Yeah.
and having a great relationship with the United Arab Emirates, that's
Yep.
where he gets his money from.
Yeah.
So he's always getting money from them. So he doesn't have to work. When you're cutting deals with the U.S. government,
Yeah.
making sure that foreign countries get what they want to get.
Yeah.
That's what the White House has become, Charlton. This is a family business. When they put the Trump banner
Yeah.
on the White House last night, they look at the White House as a monarchy. They never plan on leaving, realistically. Whether it's this year or 4 years from now, they don't plan on leaving.
Oh, they're getting out. A lot of people don't plan on getting out until they get thrown out, Big C. They'll be thrown out of the office, just like Mike Pence was turned away. Mike Pence was turned away by a Lutheran college. You can't get more suburban white than that, Big C. And they turned him and Donald Trump away. It's just a writing on the wall, and it's going to happen. I do want to ask, when I think about, what I love about what's gone on in our society is that people are actually talking, and you don't have to always agree. But when I look at sports teams, that I've always thought sports can be the vanguard because people take political sides, but they'll root for the same sports teams. I'm sure if you're in the Yankees, you have Yankees fans that are the Democrats and Republicans. If you're the Giants fans of San Francisco, they're Democrats, Republicans. Same thing. You think there's any Democrat fans for the Dallas Cowboys, Big C, with Jerry Jones? Any thoughts on that, Big C? Your thoughts? I think we've lost Big C's microphone. Maybe that bulldozer has come through and damaged the microphone. We're gonna see if we can get you back on the line in just a moment. All right, Big C, I think we got you back on the line. I know you guys are having some weather down south. All right, it could have been one of those bulldozers that Trump is running around your neighborhood, Big C. Your thoughts?
Maybe it knocked down one of the phone
The power line.
Charlton, and lost that connection.
Yeah. So when you think about all the conversations that we're having in this country, and I really appreciate that sports people are doing it, I just really do. We have the NBA. I think there was games that were postponed. They were on the pause over the Jacob Blake shooting. NBA basketball games, 6 games. WNBA, 6 games. Major League Baseball, 9 games. Major League Soccer, 5 games. NHL, 4 games. And then NFL, 6 teams suspended practice. And also the tennis, Western and Southern Open. And they all did their thing. So I know conversation doesn't have to be appealing to everybody. Not everybody's going to like you. Joe Biden, Donald Trump, they have people that are going to vote for them and against them. and I believe the good people will vote for Joe Biden. That's just my opinion, and I think Mike Pence being kicked out of an invitation is part of it. But give me your thoughts on something that I've always thought about. I know we can keep asking athletes to take a stand. I've always thought it's about politicians and lawmakers. Why do we want to put so much pressure on athletes to change society? It's like asking a person with a PhD in political science and a law degree to affect change in NBA by going out playing. And most of the players in the NBA are the ones with they're like a one or two and done in college, Big C, without a degree. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, that's where we are inside society. Everybody's looking at athletes to make social change. And like I said, you know, you talked about you were in court and a judge told you something about if he hears something other than just putting gas in the car, he goes to a mechanic.
Go to a mechanic.
And you're telling athletes to make social change and adjustments in society. They can't do it. It's the lawmakers. It's that guy who has that political science degree, who has that PhD in law, and who has practiced law, Charlton, who has become a politician and moved up through the ranks. When we look at athletes, you know, we've had athletes in professional sports that have gone right in from high school.
Yeah.
So many of them nowadays are 1 and 2 and done in college. They don't have an education. So you're putting all this emphasis on these athletes to be social justice leaders in America, Charlton. And other than just coming up making a speech, they're not prepared to go out and construct a law, to understand the breakdown of the process of how to push it through, Charlton. They don't understand about lobbying.
Yeah.
They don't. They don't know how to work across the aisle with other constituents to get this stuff done. So why do we keep calling on black athletes to make social change in America, and we don't call on our lawmakers who are qualified to do it?
Well, I think there's more than one way to cook a piece of shrimp. I had some shrimp the other day. Man, it was really good. And I put some different kind of tangy sauce on it with a little hot sauce. And my goodness, it was great. But some people eat shrimp cold. Some people eat it deep fried. Some people eat it just baked in the oven. So there's different ways. I think like every lawyer, like the judge said, when he hears a rattle noise in his car, he doesn't try to fix it. He takes it to the mechanic. Every lawyer is hired by somebody. And what I love about what the athletes are doing, going way back to Muhammad Ali, is they get together and they talk to lawyers who are skilled enough to go into a court of law and create change. Now, owners, they are professional teams. They own professional teams, and they should become owners because they're built for that. They have become billionaires because they are billionaires, mostly getting into it, and they employ players. But this is what I think, Big C. Again, there's more than one way to get from the East Coast to the West Coast. There's planes, trains, and automobiles. And if you're part of the belief that Trump is building a wall, you can do it on foot, if that makes any sense to you. That's how long it's going to take. But when you think about state, and this is what I hope players with Black Lives Matter grab onto, when you think about the state and local legislators and congressmen and senators, if you think about how they think, maybe they don't care about what athletes think, but I think they do. And they may not think or care about what owners say. I think they do, unless that owner is threatening to move that team. And when you have players that are saying, we want a change, if the owner cares about those players, they can approach and make change in legislation. Big, so your thoughts?
But, you know, when you think about political leaders, Charlton, on the state and local level, they only think about the owners. They're not thinking about the players. You're out there in California, and I believe back in the 80s, the Oakland Raiders left Oakland and went to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And yet, the city of Oakland, the politicians ended up courting the Oakland Raiders to bring them back.
Yeah.
The politicians of Los Angeles courted them. It wasn't the players in Los Angeles saying, hey, come on down here and start playing football. It was the politicians who made that move possible, who put money in the pocket of the owner of the team. They didn't put money in the pocket of the players. They put money in the pocket of the owners.
Yeah.
And when the Los Angeles Rams left Los Angeles and went to St. Louis, they did the same thing. They built the Los Angeles Rams a stadium.
Yeah.
They didn't build the players a stadium. They built it for the Rams. That stadium said Rams on there. And a lot of players went through that team, Charlton, while they were in St. Louis, the rotation.
Yeah.
None of the players, when that team moved there, were there when that team moved back to Los Angeles. And why did they move back to Los Angeles? Because politicians said, we will build your stadium and give the owners some money. They didn't say we'd give it to the players. They gave it to the owners.
Yeah.
What happened with the Raiders once again? They left Oakland, went to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Did they build a stadium for the players, or did they build a stadium for Mark Davis,
Yeah.
the owner? They put money in the owner's pocket to come to Las Vegas. They didn't put it in the players' pocket. So when you think that politicians care about players, hell no, they don't. They like watching them play. They want good seats at the stadium. But when it comes down to doing business, they do business with the billionaire because he's the one that's going to donate a couple of $1 million to their campaign, not the players.
Yeah, well, those owners don't have. I mean, there's a lot of owners that can go, like the guys that were owners of the XFL. They could go, or USFL. I'm sure if they went and asked lawmakers, can you build me a stadium, they're going to say for what? If they don't have any players, they're not going to give them the money. I think the players are the engine that drives it. I want to just say about Big C Sports, I love what we've been doing. We want to be the new sexy. We want to be clever. We want to be engaging. We want to be bold. We want to be thrilling. We want to be funny. We want to be thoughtful, and we want to be provocative. We really want to be accurate. If you're doing something and it feels good and you want some more, just Google it. And I really ask everybody, no matter what's going on in sports, what side you're on politically, just Google what everybody says. And there's a guy named Mike, I forgot his last name, but he has a show, and he keeps talking about we're going to be on the pause. Everybody's on the pause now. And I know he stole it from us. I just want people to Google how many times he says pause. He didn't talk that way a couple of years ago. Mike Greenberg, you ever hear of him, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, he's on First Take, Charlton, and, he's surrounded by a lot of tremendous athletes every day on the show. He's very salient about what he's talking about. And I've heard him say things that I did.
Yeah.
He used the term in the room where it happened. Since I started using the term. So I appreciate Mike Greenberg for giving us the advertisement every day on the show on Get Up.
But
please get up, Mike, and give us some love for the people who created these things, the slogans that you utilize.
Yeah, I've always said with the Big C Sports, we at least give people, acknowledge them, our brethren. We keep things, we acknowledge it, and I just hope that people do the same. But even Bob Costa talk about the whole sports world on pause. He's been broadcasting many, many moons. He's never spoken like that, but now he's listening to Big C Sports. But they just won't give black men credit. The NFL kicks off. Think about this. If it happens, the NFL's scheduled to kick off in 13 days. There's some schools down in Alabama that are already playing high school football, and the broadcasters were saying how hot and humid it is. They had parents in the stands about to pass out, and they kept these kids down there playing. How's the NFL going to handle this social justice, or will they make any political statements when it kicks off? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, there's several high-profile players that are considered boycotting the first game of the season.
Yeah.
And so that's something that's on the table right now with NFL players. I mean, the heat is something that you've always tended to this time of the year, whether it's in high school, college, or professional ball. When you're in the South, the humidity is part of nature, Charlton. It is ugly.
Yeah. I mean, they had parents. They had parents of high school players. They said the heat index was very high. This was in Alabama, where they've already had a high rate of COVID. Wouldn't it be something if the parents that want to sue so their kids can play, if the parents get sick instead? That makes any sense. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's not just the parents that are going to get sick from this COVID-19 and dealing with football, but it's going to be the players also.
Yeah.
You can't practice social distancing. The heat, and when the heat is there, your breath travels a few more feet because the heat just keeps it rising, Charlton.
Yeah.
So, and when you're sitting in the stand at a football stadium, all those people on the lower level getting all the exhaust from the people on the upper level. So, I mean, we're in a torrid time in America. The White House said last night during the Republican convention that they're moving on from COVID-19. They're going to the next phase. And so the administration has turned its back on COVID-19. That means that they've turned their back on America, those people who are not going to vote for him. And they think it's just going to hurt people that don't vote for him. It even kills Republicans. And that's what people need to understand. This disease does not discriminate. And when the White House said last night they're on top of it, that they've tackled COVID-19, they've defeated COVID-19,
wow.
And so they're moving on. This is the reason why people are going out playing sports, Charlton, because they're listening to the White House. And they're in most of these red states that they're going out there unprotected. Republican governors saying, go out there and have fun. And if you get sick, maybe we'll find a hospital bed for you.
Well, it's all fair level where people have the right to be ridiculous and not wear seatbelts and all that other stuff too. Again, we talked about 9 NFL players, at least 9, that canceled football practice on Thursday in protest of the shooting in Wisconsin. And then Wisconsin Lutheran College, they disinvited Mike Pence from commencement. I know he has to be feeling embarrassed, and that means they disinvited Donald Trump too. We're going to take what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. When we come right back, I'm going to hope those bulldozers are not bulldozing around Big C's house. Back in just a moment. All right, we are back for the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcast. There's so many apps that you can follow Big C Sports on, and I really appreciate it. You know, no matter what people are doing, WNBA is coming off the pause. Really do appreciate so many African-American women that are having a platform to talk about and how they want to go forward with a change. And so I really look forward to more of that. But would you believe Major League Baseball celebrations for Jackie Robinson, Big C, and the integration of Major League Baseball? It's amazing they still say Jackie Robinson integrated baseball. He was let into it. He didn't integrate it. He was already playing baseball. But the White League let him in. He was a 28-year-old man. That was 73 years ago, as Jackie Robinson was threatened with racial cruelty by white fans and media and opposing teams, a lot like Donald Trump's convention speeches. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you talk about 73 years ago, Charlton, and the racial divide in America and how it existed. 73 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you turn on the television, Charlton, that's what we're witnessing every day now still.
Yeah.
73 years later, after Jackie Robinson crossed the color barrier in Major League Baseball, we still have not been able to cross the color barrier in the streets of America.
Yeah, it really is, and that's why I'm asking my white brethren to say, what do they see on their side? I told you there's a different way to cook shrimp. I had some shrimp last night, and it was deep fried. And some people eat it raw, some people bake it, some people boil it. Mine was deep fried with some really good Ouya sauce on it. I didn't even floss my teeth. That shrimp tastes so good, I still got it in my teeth. Celebrating my son going into college, and I really am very, very proud of him. But I think about Jackie Robinson Day. Major League Baseball set to celebrate a man who broke the baseball's color barrier. He didn't break anything. He was allowed in, and if sometimes people said it was awkward display of activism by players this week, awkward to who? What could be more awkward than being an African American player and you just want to go to work and people are calling, they hate you, they're giving you death threats, then they're going to kill your family, they're going to bomb your house just because you want to go to work. Imagine if Jared Kushner was being told that someone wanted to give him death threats and destroy his family just because he wanted to go in the White House and steal more money that Donald Trump is trying to steal. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you think about the words that Jackie Robinson heard when he was a player, the racial vitriol that he got from the fans in the stands. 73 years later, those words are still spoken in some of the baseball stadiums in America. Boston, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, there was a player, and I can't remember his name, who, as a free agent, said Boston was not on his list. The African-American center fielder.
Yeah.
That free agency and Boston was not on his list because as a visiting player in that stadium, he would be in the outfield. And there would be young kids there using racial profanities, calling the Negro word.
Yeah.
Constantly. And the older people, the adults, were standing right there watching it. And he's like sitting there, and we want to know what racism is in America. It's still taught in the home. It's still accepted by white adults. So white kids can still go out there and do that. And so until those people no longer want to teach their kids racism, then we will still have racism in America. It starts at home. It's not just with the politicians. Just like what you saw last night in Washington, D.C. You saw a convention of white people in the White House. He may have had a half dozen of black people out there, but in the stands, that was all white. This is white America. This is what Donald Trump stands for.
Yeah.
And when you have that many people who voted for Donald Trump last 4 years ago,
Yeah.
who voted him into the White House, it lets you know that racism was still strong in America. And those people are still backing him. So racism in America has not taken a pause. Matter of fact, it keeps manifesting itself. Because when the young kids using it, the old people taught it to them.
Yeah.
It's still growing.
Well, they're saying, the Republicans say that the murder in Milwaukee was linked to support for Donald Trump. Isn't that something? People talk about, let's celebrate Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier. He didn't break anything. He was allowed in. And I would love them to do an experiment. And I really would love this because I believe decent people exist in all skin colors. I would love our decent white brethren, whether it's the clergy or politicians, to really examine at what point in time does a white child come out of the womb and then get taught to hate so much that they will walk down the street and want to shoot people based on listening to the words of a president. And when these are people from the Republican Party saying that the Milwaukee murder may have been linked to support for Donald Trump, because those people hear those dog whistles. And that's coming from the Republican Party. There's even a lady, I don't remember her name, but she said she's glad it happened because they're tired of the police not being able to do their job. And she's glad that 2 men were murdered by a white kid. Big, so your thoughts?
Charlton, that's the feeling of a lot of Americans. You should not be surprised by that. When you think about, and you make the statement that the good white people would find out, it's just like saying good cops, bad cops. If you're sitting there in the room with the guy and you know the guy is bad, and yet you won't turn him in, you're just as bad as he is. When somebody commits a crime, if you're a private citizen and you're with somebody who commits a crime, then you're culpable in that crime just like they are.
Yeah.
So why isn't it that way with the police department, Charlton? Why isn't it that way with white society? When you know people are doing wrong and have done things wrong, why don't you turn them in? You say, well, you don't want to destroy their lives. Think about the life that they just destroyed, Charlton, when they committed the crime that they did.
Yeah, and I know that some people like crime. They don't want to change, Big C. I've learned that from my grandparents. That's why they left the South. But part of the members of the Players Alliance, a group of more than 100 current and former black Major League players, I hope that some white players will join them too. They're actually donating their game checks Thursday and Friday today to the organization to address racial injustice. And I'm glad. I want all the commissioners to be a part of that too, so that it's a celebration of Jackie Robinson Day, but it's also a celebration of just decent people in life. And I hope that. I got to get your thoughts on something. Our show goes by way too fast, but that's okay. It's like the shrimp that I ate last night. It went by way too fast, Big Z. I ate them way too fast. New York Times survey. I just told you there's some high school football being played down in Alabama where it's been spiking. A New York Times survey of every 4-year and private college in the country, they compete in Division I, are a member of elite sports. They revealed at least 6,600 cases tied to about 270 colleges over the course of the pandemic, Big C. And I believe there's a couple of schools. It confirms COVID-19 cases on college campuses. University of Washington Huskies up in Seattle. University of California, Berkeley here in California. University of Texas. Washington had 249. Cal had 123. UCLA had 111. University of Texas had 449. And there's many, many more schools, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is where they're saying that COVID-19 doesn't affect younger people. When you think about the spread of COVID-19, and here it is, New York Times did a study, 6,600 college students that have been affected by COVID-19, Charlton, and you're talking about those numbers that are on the individual campuses around the country. And these campuses, some of them are talking about playing football, and when we think about the athletes are part of that student body. And some of these campuses have horrendous numbers of student athletes. The University of Oklahoma had 21 players test positive this week for COVID-19. But they're not putting a pause on the season, Charlton. They said, oh, well. 21 players test positive for COVID-19. So you know you got more because those 21 players have been in contact with the rest of the team, Charlton. They've been in contact with the rest of the staff. And so as the White House said last night, they're on top of COVID-19. They are. They're bearing it, Charlton. They said everybody in America potentially will get it. That's what the White House said. They're not concerned about it. If you die, you die. That's what college football is saying. If you die, you die if you get COVID-19.
Yeah, and the university that disinvited Mike Pence, they heard the same stuff. Lutheran University, Wisconsin Lutheran University, our college, they told them don't come, and they don't appreciate what they're doing with the Governor Wallace politics. University, it's called UT Southwestern, 207. UConn had 112. Penn had 167. University of Georgia Bulldogs had 390. Florida had 217. Central Florida had 438. South Florida had 182. Stanford here on the West Coast, they had 99, and Georgia Tech had 94, and they're just doing whatever they can to pretend it's not a big deal. I want to get your thoughts on something. The Big 12, the athletic departments, it's confirmed at least 212 cases of COVID-19 within their athletic department, and this leads to all Power 5 conferences, and in this year it seems to be infected with COVID-19. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Oklahoma's in part of that, Charlton, but this is what they're saying. They're insisting on playing football.
Yeah.
That they have COVID-19 under wraps. You talked about the breakout at the University of Texas, over 400 students.
Yeah.
And so you got to understand the number of them that are in the athletic department that's part of the Big 12 that's leading all of college football.
Yeah.
So as we think about these universities putting these young men and women's lives on the line for economic gain, we talked about earlier in the week that if the ACC does not play college football, that they're going to lose $30 million per team, Charlton, in the ACC. Georgia Tech is part of the ACC, and you talked about the numbers at Georgia Tech of COVID-19 in the athletic department.
Yeah.
So as we look at these things, when these young people are told to go out and play, what is the protection for them? What is the long-term prognostication for these players' health?
Yeah.
What are you going to do for them if they get COVID-19 and are no longer able to play college athletics?
Yeah.
Their career ends because they end up with a heart condition, and you won't pass them on a physical. Are you going to take care of them financially down the road?
No.
Once their career has ended because of this COVID-19 disease?
No, they're not going to. Did you hear it where, and I don't know if it's true, I just heard some other media people in the Bay Area saying, I think there's a couple of schools in the Big Ten that have filed a lawsuit, or they're talking about filing a lawsuit against the Big Ten so they can get out there and play irrespective of COVID-19 and how it's affected people, over 180,000 fatalities from it. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think that lawsuit could win because the colleges have a lot deeper pockets than some parents getting together. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, this is about going to court. You always advocate for that, suing somebody.
Go to court.
And that's what has been done. There has been a lawsuit filed by the players in the Big Ten. What happens in these lawsuits, it's not about the university having deeper pockets, Charlton, is that you get lawyers who want to sue on a contingency.
Oh, yeah.
Because if they win, then the university is going to have to pay them.
Yeah.
Many lawyers and law firms work like that, Charlton, and for these players to be able to get a law firm to take on this lawsuit sees legs and potential of winning money, Charlton. But also the Big Ten has put on the slate today that they're considering starting up football on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I heard that.
So the Big Ten's schedule is not off the table. You bring up a lawsuit, they say, okay, we're thinking about starting football on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So eventually one of these are going to go through.
Yeah, they say if you sue enough people that you want them to settle. They don't care if they win the lawsuit. A lot of people will settle and give up several million as opposed to losing $100 million. So we'll see what happens. I know Donald Trump said that he doesn't like it when athletes get involved with sports, but he can't keep his mouth out of athletes. Didn't he say, fire the SOBs? I think the Liberty University College in Wisconsin said, fire Mike Pence and Donald Trump. They've already put the writing on the wall. The funny thing to me is when they would chant it, they had someone chant, I guess the teleprompter told them, 4 more years. It was heard by like 4 times, like 4 people clapped, and it was all his family. No one else clapped. I want to say to the NFL, there's a player, Tennessee Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill. He said in a press statement, I know POTUS tells us guys to shut up and don't talk about politics. Here's a white kid, Southern guy. Maybe he'll tell him to shut up too. Ryan Tannehill said in a press statement, remember when Drew Brees had to do the pushback? He had to go on the pause and say, wait a minute, maybe I should look at some things differently. He said in a press statement, this is a white guy, that the United States was born on racist ideas. White guy said that. And he would know. That's what I've been saying. I want to hear from decent white guys. Like, what do you see? Like, what do you see that you're taught when you come out of the womb to when you learn the N-word and everything else that your parents and grandparents teach you? And he says we're tired of dealing with systemic racism, that we're tired of dealing with oppression. We're tired of seeing black men and black women dying in situations where they should be able to walk away and walk home and spend time with their families just like white kids are. Ryan Tannehill's never been pulled a gun on him by police officers just for asking for driver's license registration. And he said, this is a white guy saying it, that it's sickening to see how Americans treat non-whites. I know this might make what's that guy named? That Mike Ditka might want to throw up. And Jim Nantz and a lot of other guys that when they thought the microphone was off, they said, I'm so tired of this garbage. They'll make millions of dollars broadcasting games about black men, but they don't want to hear how to keep them safe. And I will finish with this because I appreciate Ryan Tannehill. I thought it would have come from a guy like Tom Brady, but Ryan Tannehill did it. He says they're tired of having to worry about their young kids maybe not coming home at night, and white parents don't have those burdens, and Donald Trump is proud of it, and he says when you arrest them, rough them up. He wasn't talking about guys that look like Ryan Tannehill and Tom Brady. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, see, this is what's important. When you put the emphasis of who you want to be a white spokesperson for you, then you're missing the message yourself. When you sit there and you say you want Tom Brady and people of that nature to speak up, why is Tom Brady more important than Ryan Tannehill when this statement is made? Ryan Tannehill got a new lease on life last year in Tennessee after leaving Miami. And he realized that some black people made him a very rich person, a la Derrick Henry. Got him a 3-year, $90 million contract, $64 million of that guaranteed, because he went to a team that had some black kids that were playing great football at the time. And Ryan Tannehill respects that. And so by coming out of Texas A&M playing college football, being down in Miami, he might have been sheltered a little bit. But once he got to Tennessee and saw the racial divide and able to listen to those black teammates for once and understand their plight of what they have had to deal with being in a southern state, Charlton, now he has been awakened. Don't sit there and say you want certain individuals, Drew Brees, Tom Brady. They're not spokespersons for white people, Charlton. They are not. They're not spokespersons for white sports. It takes the brains to stand up and say, hey, this is wrong. Ryan Tannehill grew some balls. He stood up and said, this is wrong. And now maybe others will speak out. You always need someone, as they say, to break the ice. But the conversation in the room is always uncomfortable. That's the problem. Ryan Tannehill said, I'm no longer going to sit around and be complacent to people being uncomfortable. I'm going to speak out because I'm the quarterback. Everybody listens to me on the team. Maybe the public will do the same damn thing.
Maybe they will. And the reason I mentioned guys like Brady or anyone else that's at the high end of the NFL markets players. They market players. It'd be nice to have this spokesperson because everybody's saying Michael Jordan should have said more and Michael Jordan's hiding. They never said Tom Brady's hiding. Tom Brady's won as many championships as Michael Jordan has, but they never put pressure on a white guy. It's always on the black guy. But the white guy would have the insight. He knows what people say when the doors are closed. He knows what they say when people don't feel that they're going to be chastised for it. That's why I would love to see more guys like that speak out. I want to ask you. The manager Aaron Boone for the New York Yankees. Now, no one knows anyone's personal life. I didn't know he had 2 adopted black children, and this is what I'm saying because I saw him on a press conference, and he was simply asked a question about what's going on. And unlike Tom Brady, other people, forget about Tom Brady, but manager Boone, when he broke down, he felt that pressure of this white garbage that's coming out of the White House and Donald Trump and Mike Pence and their dog whistles and the Governor Wallace segregation now, segregation forever. When Mike Boone moves his kids into a suburban neighborhood that the parents may be afraid of black people, that's what Donald Trump has told white people. And when Boone hears that, I'm sure his children come to him and say, Dad, what is that all about? Are people really going to leave if we move into the neighborhood? And it made him break down, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's like when I make the statement all the time, white people. And you say not all white people. You don't know the lives of every white person when I make that statement. You didn't know that Boone had adopted black children. So you're thinking about the actress Sandra Bullock, who has adopted black children. You think about the actress Angelina Jolie, who has adopted multiracial children. So she has black, she has Asian. She has a rainbow in her house. So when you think about, when I make a broad statement, and people who know that they're not a part of that statement understand what I'm saying. And so when you look at where Boone is in making that statement, the statement that Boone made is no different than any other black parent making that statement. Any parent who has black children make that same statement every day. You don't have to be white. Black men say that every day, Charlton.
Yeah, and I see how there are many families now that are multiracial families. That's what's different than in the days of Governor Wallace in the Sidney Poitier movie, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. It is a lot different now. And the thing I say, whether it's you or me or anybody else, when, just like Manager Boone, when you say, or someone says black people commit crimes or white people commit crimes, or white guys can walk down the street and shoot people, and then they'll have some Republicans saying, yeah, they're glad he did it. And I hope that God helps it happen to someone they love, maybe even them. I really do. And I just do. And when you have biracial families, and everybody came from Africa, that's Dr. Leakey Gregor Mendel, but it has to hit those people different when they have black and white in their family, and then they hear this racist garbage that did not even work for Governor Wallace. He was defeated, Big C, and Mike Pence just got kicked out of a university commencement speech, and Donald Trump will be kicked out of the White House November 3rd. And I'm just appreciate Mr. Boone coming forward and being able to have empathy, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about many professional athletes who have multiracial families, who are in interracial relationships, and have biracial children, that they have to explain these plights to what they live in every day, Charlton, and the challenges that they're going to face, even though they're rich in America. They're still going to face these challenges.
Yeah.
The challenges in America are based on color.
Yeah.
It's not based on equality. It's based on color.
Yeah.
That is the definitive line in America. When we looked at the Republican convention, it was based on color.
All right.
You parade 4 or 5 black people out there saying everything is great for everybody.
We good, boss.
Because Donald Trump is a great guy. What is your income from Donald Trump? What is the salary that he has you in the White House on? That's the reason why you're saying things are great for you.
Yeah.
Because you can walk around and the police are not bothering you at the White House. Another black person can't get through the gate. So there's not equality in America. There's not economic equality. There's color divide in America, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's what we have. When a white guy can walk down the street with an AR-15, police pass him a bottle of water, said, we thank you for being out here.
Isn't that crazy?
Go ahead on and kill a couple of people. That's what he did, Charlton.
Yeah.
And drove home. He drove 45 miles back home after he killed people.
Yeah, and there's some Republicans saying they're glad he did it. And I hope it happens to them. I swear to God, I do. NFL reporter Jeremiah Trotter reported that a few prominent NFL players, they may want to sit out a game at the start of the season, following the lead of other professional athletes in other leagues, including NBA, NHL, the Major League Baseball, WNBA, Major League Soccer, and a few other prominent black players told them that. And I appreciate, this is what I'm saying, the younger generation, they don't fall for the Governor Wallace tactics. That's why those kids in Wisconsin, at Liberty University, Wisconsin, they rebuked Mike Pence and Donald Trump. They said, we don't want to give an our commencement speech, and they're going to do the same thing the night of the election. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, when you look at these athletes, Charlton, taking a stand, the NFL season is 13 days away.
Yeah.
And we have prominent athletes talking about taking a stand. You think about that first game of the NFL season, Patrick Mahomes versus Deshaun Watson. What would happen if they decide to say, we're not going to play this game?
Yeah.
Think about the whiplash that would go across the NFL and the United States, Charlton, if those two great young black quarterbacks decide that they don't want to play the opening game of the NFL season.
Yeah.
You think that the president would be in an uproar? Yes, he would. But it would affect the bottom line dollar, Charlton, of tens of thousands of people. And you think Caesars would not be on tilt? Caesars is in partnership with the NFL.
Yeah.
Gambling is legal now nationwide.
Yeah.
So the NFL and all Negro players, professional players in America, are affecting the bottom line in many ways.
Yeah.
And this is the cry talking about we got to get them out there playing.
Yeah, it's going to happen, basically. We already know that's going to happen. Jerry Jones, if he's around, he may even have a panic attack if you tell Jerry Jones that people are starting to read. It might take away some of his money. There's 2 black-owned banks that just merged to form $1 billion lender, the largest black-owned bank in the United States. They're actually down in Georgia, and we talk about banking. And with factoring, that $1 billion is worth $10 billion, and they understand that. I want to see if I can own me a bank. I'd love to be worth $10 billion, Big C. But some black men have done it. It's like the new Wall Street, and black men have done it for years, and they've done it again down south. I want to say there's a book I want to encourage people to go buy. And some people might be offended by the title, but sometimes if you can get through the Donald Trump Republican National Convention without throwing up over all those old white people talking about moving out of the suburbs if black people move in, and the White House was built by black people. It's called $40 Million Slaves, The Rise and Fall, and it's called The Rise, Fall, and Redemption of the Black Athlete. Ironically, this book talks about the $40 million slaves politically and socially, how black men have helped build billion-dollar industries without ownership. And nowhere in America does anyone contribute $1 billion without owning any of it. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is what sports is, and this is the reason I keep talking about political clout. Everyone talks about the economics. It's the political clout that you possess.
Yeah.
When you see people in politics and the people who support them, and you look at these huge donors that are there, the NBA can do the same thing. The NFL can do the same thing. Major League Baseball and the NHL have the same opportunity, Charlton, to create political clout. And if you don't have political clout, you don't have anything in America. It doesn't make any difference how deep your bank account is, Charlton. It comes down to political clout to move things.
Yeah, it always does, and that's why we got to keep doing our part to move at least the conversation in the sports world. I want to ask Americans to vote. Just text the word vote to 26797, 26797. Tell all your friends that Big C and all the sports leagues are saying get out and vote. Really appreciate that. Google or read the book, $40 Million Slaves. When you think about people in the White House and they're telling black men to just shut up and play, and all those guys are crooked. All of Donald Trump's friends, most of them have gone to prison, and I really implore for those white American women that were at his convention last night, and he's telling you that crime is going to go up, that suicide rate is going to go up if Joe Biden's elected. Maybe he's maybe it's a premonition of what's happening in his own life, Big C. But I think that dog whistle died along with Governor Wallace, and I don't see white women being afraid of that, people moving into the neighborhoods. I really do think that they're afraid of guys like Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump's best friend, and what they're doing when they move into the neighborhood of those teenage white kids. And people can Google that, especially when you go to vote for November 11th. Big C, final story. I know that everybody's going through something, but I am proud that so many people are willing to have a conversation. And some people say, oh, it's uncomfortable. It's never been uncomfortable for black Americans. For like 400 years, we've always had conversations. And all we really want is liberty and justice for all. And we want Congress to sign into law that when you shoot and murder unarmed people, that you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And that even helps good cops, because they don't have to worry about turning in the bad cops. The bad cops know that they will be prosecuted, not celebrated when they murder innocent people. Big C, that's not too much to ask. Big C, your thoughts?
Yes, it is too much to ask. You're asking white people to not protect themselves, Charlton. That's what you're asking. You're asking white people not to have impunity against murdering black people on the street. They're not going to give up that right, Charlton. They're just not. You know, when you talk about equality and times changing, you said Jackie Robinson crossed the color barrier in baseball 73 years ago.
Yeah.
73 years later, Negroes are still dealing with the same vitriol Jackie Robinson had to deal with. Why? Because white society was protected in the vitriol that they threw towards Negroes 73 years ago. White society is still protected against the vitriol that they do against Negroes. White boys, 17 years old, walking down the street with a long gun in a crowd, police giving him a bottle of water and said, "Thank you for helping us out." He's not part of law enforcement. He's never been trained. He traveled 45 miles to go hunt human beings, Charlton. To go hunt human beings. That's what he traveled 45 miles to do. You think white people are going to give up that ability in America? Hell no.
Yes, I do. You just heard Ryan Tannehill come out and denounce that, and many other players, Coach Boone, or Manager Boone, a lot of other people, they just denounced Mike Pence.
Denouncing versus changing the law from those white congressmen, senators, excuse me. We got 97 white senators in Washington, D.C. Those 97 white senators are not going to change the law against white America.
And I believe they will, and that's why we had the vote. And I told you
the Second Amendment, Charlton, they're not going to abolish it.
No, everyone should have a gun, but I believe that the hearts and minds of people is changing. Governor Wallace died a long time ago, and Mike Pence being kicked out of Liberty University is the start of it. But it's all fair and love and war. I want to wish everybody a happy Friday. Keep having conversations. That's the way things change. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He is known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, the NBA players came out tonight with a statement saying that they're going to form a racial justice coalition. I'm proud of the players getting together because that's how you move towards politicians, is that you get a coalition together, Charlton, and everyone is on the same page and a direct purpose. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, Charlton, our nurses, doctors, first responders. You are brave. You are strong. Help keep America safe. Don't worry about what the president says.
And may God bless everybody, especially young people going off to live a great life. And I'm so proud of young people. And you can be proud, too, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, that's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to deal with that garbage of their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports Show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.